evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us on what I'm sure is a busy fall night for families around the dinner hour and all the extracurriculars. So thank you for making time to be here. I'm Kristen Rose. I am the proud principal of Eckstein Middle School, and we've got Berna Cristobal on with us tonight. She's our 8th grade assistant principal. And we've got Dylan from Camp OrKyla that's with us as well. He's waving. So we're going to start today by talking about the school-based organization. And then Dylan's here from Camp OrKyla to talk to you about the programming, the wonderful programming that our students are going to get to experience. So thanks for joining us. We'll keep letting in our guests, and we're also recording so that those that couldn't join can go back and review the material tonight. So we are ready for slide 2, Ms. Cristobal. We are very much looking forward to this trip with our 8th graders. It really struck me this year that this is our cohort of kids who many had an OrKyla or an Islandwood trip planned in their 4th grade year that was canceled due to the start of the pandemic. And then many of those trips got rescheduled again in their 5th grade year, and then canceled once again as Seattle Public Schools was not doing field trips that 2nd year of COVID. So we are so excited for this 8th grade cohort to be able to push out to camp and connect with each other, continue building relationships, get some outdoor education in, and finally get this camp experience. I also just wanted to say thank you to our many parent chaperones that are pushing out with us to OrKyla and our staff chaperones. It's about a group of 50 people who are giving up time away from family and their jobs and are coming to hang out with us and our wonderful 8th graders. So thank you to all of our chaperones. Nurse Amelia, our new school nurse this year, organizes all of the medication that travels with us. And then Nurse Rob, who was with us 2 years ago at Eckstein, is actually traveling to OrKyla with us. And he takes care of all the medication needs throughout the days and the dosing for students. Any things that come up around student health, he's there to guide us. So we really appreciate the two of them. Julia Dietering in our main office has managed to get all of the volunteer chaperones the paperwork in, has tracked this through, recruited volunteers, helped us with our paperwork organization for students, and has really just kept us on track being able to push out to camp. So Julia is going to be joining this call, and thank you so much for helping us along. Our science teachers have been great partners. They passed out the field trip paperwork and helped get students register in electives that they're choosing. And then we have some of you on the call that have said, I'll help with Excel and getting the students organized into the electives that we're going to speak to. So thanks to the crew of 5 that said that they would help with some of the other organization. Thank you to Dylan and OrKyla for having us up year after year with a huge group. Eckstein every year is about 350 students, so it's a big endeavor for OrKyla. We'll hear from Dylan tonight. And then all of you as parents who are going to help pack and check off those lists and get students excited and organized for camp here in a few weeks. So thank you to all of you for being here tonight with us too. Okay, next slide. So again, we'll talk a little bit about our Eckstein procedures tonight. We'll hear from OrKyla staff, and then at the end, we'll take questions and answers. And I'll ask tonight that our questions really focus on questions that are good for all. It looks like we have 115 on the call right now. That would be helpful to the bigger group. If you have student specific questions, we're happy to answer those too, but it would probably be better with an email directly to Ms. Cristobal or myself. Okay, here we go. OrKyla logistics. You saw that the field trip forms came home this week. The cost this year, and it is a big cost with this, is $315 per student. That is all of the charter transportation to the ferry dock in Anacortes, the ferry, the lodging, the food when they're there. And we are committed to ensuring that every student can go, no matter, regardless of any financial circumstance. So we've got full scholarships, and every single one of our students that wants to be there, we will make sure gets to go. I thought I'd just give one little price point. For an hour and a half to Anacortes and back on charter buses right now is about $20,000 for the school. So when you're thinking about that fee, and you divide that by, 300 students that will probably be going, you get an idea of just why it does cost what it does for us to go. And then the OrKyla staff and the experiences that you'll hear about tonight. Okay, next slide. General schedule, I wanted to mention tonight, we're going to send this all out several times prior to camp. The emails, you might be like, I know this, I've read this, but we want to make sure everybody's on the same page. So we'll say it tonight, and then we'll keep sending out this material. October 10th is a Tuesday. We're going Tuesday through Thursday, and we are meeting at school very early, much before the start of the school day at 7:15 a.m. in our back parking lot behind school. We ask that you park either on 30th below our school, which would be west of the school, or on 75th, and walk into that back parking lot. And that's because these gigantic charter buses come in, and we stagger 8 buses in the back parking lot. We have 350 kids, 50 adults, a ton of baggage, and then kids are meeting up in their cabin groups. And so we really use that whole lot and spread out. So we ask again that you park on 30th or 75th, and then walk in with your kids' luggage. Your students should be able to carry all of the luggage on their own, because when they get to camp, we're going to unload a U-Haul where they load their luggage that morning, and they physically carry their own belongings to their cabin. So it's really important that what they're bringing, they can personally carry. When they arrive, they will see a very big U-Haul that's backed up right against our cafeteria, and they load all of their luggage into that. So they do not need to carry their luggage onto the charter buses or onto the ferry. And then once we get to OrKyla, we unload the U-Haul, and we unload all of the bags onto a big basketball court, and they find their baggage and then take it to their cabins. Once their belongings are in the U-Haul, they will go into the cafeteria, and they will get a lanyard that they will be wearing with their name, cabin name, chaperone, and then what their specific schedule is for the 3 days that we're at camp. Then they will go out to the garden. They will meet their chaperone and their cabin mates and get ready to board the charter buses. We will try to leave by 8. We have about an hour and a half ride to Anacortes, where we catch the ferry to Orcas Island. It is a Washington State ferry. And we ask students to bring lunch with them that they'll eat on board the ferry. If your student typically buys lunch at school, we will have our culinary arts specialist at school make up lunches, and that there's a notation that you can put on your permission slip if your student needs a lunch to eat on board the ferry. And those of you that have been on a ferry before, you know that there's little cafeterias. Those are not open on our trips to Orcas Island for our Eckstein students. So don't depend on your student being able to go to the galley and purchase something. So we take, it's a fairly long ferry ride, about an hour to Orcas Island. We get off at Orcas, and Camp OrKyla's got their buses backed into the ferry dock, and we walk off, we board the buses, and start our camp experience. On the 12th, Thursday, we come home. We're leaving OrKyla at about noon. We catch, I think it's like a 1:35 ferry, and we say we'll be back to school at approximately 4:30 p.m. Our main office, again, fantastic Julia Dietering, is going to be talking points, sending talking points, text messages, and emails saying they've left Orcas, whether the ferry's on time or not, when we arrive in Anacortes. And some years we fly home from Anacortes down I-5, and I remember other years where we're in bumper to bumper traffic. So hopefully that will not happen. But Berna, Cristobal, and I will be sending messages to the office saying we're 30 minutes out, so that you all know what time to come gather your students and all of their things in our back parking lot. So those are kind of the start and end of OrKyla. We'll get to the middle points here in a few minutes. Next slide is just some community expectations I wanted to mention. Student behaviors that we expect at school is what we expect at camp as well. We do ask, and the students always go, no, I can't leave it behind, but they can, and they do every year. We ask that all electronic devices, inclusive of cell phones, get left back at home in Seattle. There is an emergency phone number at OrKyla if there's anything happening at home that we need to let your student know about at camp. And I mean, honestly, the fact of the matter is, one, we want the kids connecting and not on devices the whole time, but also the service is really challenging up at this part of Orcas Island. We have our devices and we often have to walk to certain parts of camp to try to get coverage. And we're often going into Canadian service areas for cell phones. So the kids adjust and they leave it at home. And again, there's ways to contact us in case of an emergency. We'll have an assembly with our students, but we just remind them of being kind to others. And this is all about inclusion as we go to camp. A big one is following directions from adults, whether it's our school staff or OrKyla staff or Eckstein staff and parent chaperones, of course, as we go, that they have to stay within their groupings at all times. And I added this last bullet point this year. This has only happened one time in our many years of going to Camp OrKyla, but we last year did have to send a few students home due to some choices that were happening at camp. I'm not going to get into what those specifically looked like, but what I want to tell you is we don't just say they do one thing and we say, you're going home, we'll take you across the ferry and your parents need to meet you in Anacortes. If there are things happening that we're concerned about in terms of behaviors from students, we will call home at that very first concern, either Ms. Cristobal or myself, and we will talk about it with parents, students, and then our team. And then last year we called home a second time, and then there was a third phone call, and that was that we're going to take your student across, and everybody was aware leading up to this that there were concerns. I do not think that that is going to be a challenge with this group at all, but I wanted to just mention it to please just have conversations with your students just about, general, just listening to adults, respectful behavior, just as what you would expect with your family if you were traveling as well. And then again, OrKyla is very big. We've got lots of checkpoints along the way, but we want to make sure that they are checking in with chaperones and following our schedule of events. And we will meet with students about all of this here in a couple weeks. Sometimes they like to try to switch groups or go to a different elective, and we are very methodical in how we do this. And electives at OrKyla can only take a certain capacity. So we will stress to students, they have to stay within the groups in which they've been assigned. Okay, let's see. The next one, I think, was health here. Okay, there we go. We have over the years had to send students home from camp if they're feeling ill. We will be bringing COVID tests with us. And if you are concerned about your students' health before going to camp, we would kindly ask that you give them a COVID test before you send them off to camp with us. We will bring some with us. And there's just various things over the years that have popped up. A pink eye, for example, various things where we, student and family have been like, we want to bring them home. So either Ms. Cristobal or myself will physically walk them on the ferry and then take you to meet them on the side of Anacortes. Again, this does not happen often, but we just want you to know. In case of an emergency or anything, we can make those decisions. Again, Nurse Rob, who was with us a few years ago at Eckstein, is traveling with us. So we will have a school nurse with us that will advise on any of these sort of situations. Nurse Rob, along with Ms. Cristobal, our assistant principal, and myself, the three of us stay right under the dining hall in what's called the teaching center. And we will have somebody there 24 hours a day for whatever is happening. And we'll have phones, and it's kind of our command center, and we'll be in contact with home. So I just am saying that to hopefully bring some comfort that we've got ways for whatever's happening to troubleshoot. Okay, let's get to more of the fun stuff now. I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Cristobal, that's going to talk briefly about activities before Dylan comes on from Camp OrKyla and is going to share a PowerPoint as well about the experience that your students are going to be getting. So here's Ms. Cristobal, 8th grade assistant principal. Thank you.
Thanks, Ms. Rose. Hi, everybody. My name is Berna Cristobal. I'm the 8th grade administrator and assistant principal. Super excited that we get to go on this trip together this year with our 8th graders. I'm going to touch base a little bit of the activities that our students are going to be doing while they're at camp. And Dylan will follow up later on with more specifics. But during their science classes today and on Wednesday, students got to pick their electives based on choice, whether it's their first, second, or third choice. And then they also got to put in names of who would they like in their cabins. And that's going to be super helpful for us to set up electives and cabins. And we're trying to honor as much as we can as possible based on capacity for each elective and cabin based on student interest. So Dylan will touch more on what other electives there are, and students will have an opportunity for 3 electives during the time that they are in camp. Okay, the next up are assigning cabins. So like I mentioned, students started to think about who they want to be in their cabins. Ms. Ziada, who is our 8th grade counselor, and I will work really closely to assign cabins based on whether friendship groups, relationships, and how that works, and also trying to build up new friendships along the way. And students get to choose 3 different cabins, whether in a male, female, or all gender cabins. And then each of these cabins are situated on different parts of the camp. And then in each side of the camp, whether it's a female side of the cabins, there will be bathrooms as well. And then the all gender cabins will also have their bathroom too. Next slide. Okay, so there's a little bit of more details. Nurse Amelia has asked us that if you are sending kids with medicine, that we need to have those filled out by forms by the 26th. That's next week. I know that can take some time to get authorization from your doctor. So we wanted to get ahead of that and make sure that all the meds that kids are needing throughout the time that they are in camp are with us before we depart during our trip. And it's been approved and authorized by their doctor. All of those forms were included in the permission slips that went home last Monday. Another part of this is safety. So we have chaperones with every cabin group. We're going to do head counts every night and during different touch points throughout the day, whether the transitions from meals to electives. And then there will be a time for Eckstein staff to check in with each cabin nightly. Dietary needs. There will be there's a form as part of provided by OrKyla that states the different dietary needs that our students and our families need during their time. And that just gives you assurance that they're honoring all those dietary needs that your students or you might have as you join us during camp. Next slide. Oh, I guess I could do it. All right. Oh, this is super small. I know you can't read this, but this is kind of just an overview of what the first day and a half is going to be like at Camp OrKyla. We will have more detailed printouts and electronic copies of this as we get closer to our travel date. But if you can really see and like really zoom in, we keep the kids super busy throughout the day that they will sleep super well at the end of each night with electives and different activities throughout the time that they are there. All right, so here are the next steps. We have the Eckstein permission slip that is very lengthy. I invite parents to really go through this very diligently, because once we receive it, we want to make sure that it's completed. There's the Camp OrKyla liability waiver. There's also the Camp OrKyla photo release. You can submit your payment through school pay, a check, or cash. And that's going to be turned into students' homeroom teachers. And if you are needing a scholarship, we have scholarship available. There is a spot in the permission slip to check mark if you need a partial or full scholarship. And we don't turn anybody away for their need. And we would love to have as many people as we can join us during this camp time. All right, here's another small little thing again with the packing list. This was attached to the field trip paperwork that came home. We will email this and we will send it home again as we get closer to our date. This is such a good checklist for all our students to make sure that they have what they need, and thinking about the necessities that they need throughout the time that they are in camp.
Perfect. Can everyone see that screen? Awesome. Sweet. Well, thank you all for having me. My name's Dylan Gonda. I'm our site director of outdoor environmental ed at OrKyla. Been here for about 2 years full-time in this role, but and lifelong outdoor educator, and excited to have all the campers up here at OrKyla. It's going to be a ton of fun. So some things I want to hit on before we dive too much into it is, what is the YMCA? What is Camp OrKyla? What do we stand for? We are really proud of our mission and our equity statement, something we hold through all of our classes. The kids will be read these statements too when they arrive, along with the chaperones, something we live and embody. So I'm going to read it for you all just so you all understand what we're about. Our mission is building a community where all people, especially the young, are encouraged to develop their fullest potential in spirit, mind, and body. And our equity statement: the Y actively promotes a culture free from bias and injustice. We are dedicated to removing institutional and systematic barriers that result in oppression and racism. We will be accountable to marginalized communities for creating equitable and sustainable environments where social justice is woven into every facet of our programs, and by caring for our communities in a cultural, versatile, and respectful manner. The YMCA of the world, the greater YMCA mission, is all about respect, responsibility, honesty, caring, and a passion for excellence. And you'll see that carried through in our beautiful setting at OrKyla. So a little bit of background. We've been around for a long time, since 1906, and we've been doing environmental ed since the 70s. So nearing 60 years of environmental ed, which is pretty amazing. And we have staff from all across the world, and we serve schools from all over Washington and Oregon. We're really proud of this program we built. And just for some context, if you've never been to the San Juan Islands, we're way up on the far side of Orcas Island. It's about a 10-mile drive from the ferry landing. So just like was talked about earlier, we're going to back our buses down the ferry ramp. We kind of take over that whole area. It becomes ours, and we grab all the kids and throw them onto the buses to make our way back to camp. And when we get to camp, we jump right into it. We're going to talk a little bit about what that space is like and what that schedule looks like. So Camp OrKyla property, it's big, like we talked about. It's about 300 acres. We have a mile of coastline with some really beautiful tide pools that kids get to explore, and amazing sea creatures. We also have old growth forest, and then massive apple orchards that are over 120 years old that kids get to go and experience. And they might be doing some apple picking to help us get prepped for our fall festival too. So a bunch of fun things to see at camp. Along with that, there are tons of restrooms everywhere. That's a question we get a lot, is if my kid needs to do the restroom and we're walking around camp, is there a place? There's lots of restrooms scattered throughout camp, and lots of meeting points where we all group up. So hopefully nobody gets too turned around at camp. One thing we get asked a lot about too is our cabins. So in years past, for a very long time, our cabins had no doors. So raccoons and otters and anything could come hang out. We have doors now, so much more secure there. But there is no electricity in our cabins. They're pretty rustic. They do have skylights, most of them do, so it gets a little bit bright, but at night we recommend you bring a flashlight because there's no other electricity or lights. They're pretty bare bones, but the kids won't be spending much time in the cabins anyways. They're really there just to put their things, change, and go to bed at night. That's really the only thing cabins are used for. Our bathrooms are all set up now to where they are all privately stalled. So everything is very private. Every kid has their own sense of security and privacy within that. That goes for our showers and restrooms. There's no open urinals or anything. Everything is stalled off to make it as safe and private as possible. And we have these bathhouses scattered all throughout camp. One thing we get asked a lot about and we get really excited about is food. Our kitchen director, Celia, does an amazing job meeting everyone's dietary needs. So if you have anything really specific you need some help with, Celia is a great connection. And we can get in touch with her if you have very specific questions you need. But most of the food, we try to keep it as generic as possible so everyone can have a whack at it, trying to make sure it goes well for them. We do have lots of vegetarian options too with every single meal. So if that's a concern, we've got that covered. But this is kind of an example of things you'll have. In the morning, we try to keep it pretty light so kids don't eat crazy, crazy heavy and then are like really exhausted for the whole day. And then at dinner, we have a dessert too. So a little bit about our educators. This year, you will have staff coming all the way from Miami, Florida to Anchorage, Alaska. So we truly have staff coming from across the country here. Many of the staff have been teaching at OrKyla for multiple years and seasons, so they really know what we're about, are really visionaries in our whole program. Then we have new staff who have taught at outdoor environmental ed sites across the country, bringing new experience and new science skills. All of our staff are heavily vetted and go through a really intensive month-long training going over our science programs, and all of our challenge course curriculum as well. So they're really excited to teach. This is their passion, their career, and they're excited to see the kids here at camp. Speaking about our science curriculum, so all of our classes meet next gen science standards, something we're proud of, meeting those standards and kind of developing this curriculum. And then all of our science ones use Beetle's teaching philosophy. So it's very, very hands-on. There won't be points where the kids are sitting and just being told facts. They're going to be diving into it and learning about how to identify the trees in our forest or how to identify the marine invertebrates and how they live. So they'll be hands-on learning, not just being told the facts. Along with that, we do a bunch of other challenge courses we're going to talk a little bit more about here in a second. And a big thing we're proud of is choosing your challenge. We're never going to force the kids to do an activity, but we're going to push everyone to stretch into their learning or challenge zone is how we call it at camp. So everyone's got their comfort zone where you feel really safe and comfortable. Challenge zone where you're stretching yourself, you're learning a little bit, your heart rate goes up, you're feeling that pressure. Then panic zone where you kind of get really freaked out. We never want to be there. We want to be pushing kids to be in that challenge and learning, as well as chaperones that come too. We want them to be a part of that experience as well and push and learn a little bit. So speaking of our challenge courses, we are going to be doing, our kids have the opportunity to sign up for different electives, but some of those are the zip line, giant swing, and high ropes, which are three of the most, I'd say, life-changing activities kids can do, where it holds on to it for the rest of their life of what you experienced. And so we're going to watch some videos here of what that experience is like. So yeah, here's our zip line video for y'all. So our zip line has been around now for a handful of years, and it's really fun because it's a part of our climbing tower too. So kids get to walk up there, experience it with each other. It's a large platform at the top, so everyone gets to talk through what their challenges are, how if they want to go for it, or just like get to be a team and cheer each other on to go through this experience. And we have it staffed by 6 of our highly trained ropes specialists at camp. And then we're going to watch a video about our giant swing, which is also a really popular high ropes feature we'll do at camp. So with the giant swing, the team works together to pull their fellow classmate up to the point they want to. Each kid gets to decide how high you want to be pulled up to our tree. And then they are in control of letting go and letting themselves swing through. The really cool thing about our swings, we have some in our lower camp and some in our upper farm camp area, but all of them overlook the Salish Sea and the channels and the islands. And on a clear day, you can see the Canadian Cascades and other Canadian Gulf Islands. It's a really special viewpoint the kids get to see as they're swinging in the trees. And this is our double ends, our high ropes features the kids will do. So with that feature, there's also teamwork involved. Everyone's always involved working, but there is an individual or a camper up in the tree going across a feature between two trees, and the teams down below are managing the ropes and making sure they've got enough slack or it needs to be pulled tighter to help them move across the whole feature and cheering them on the whole time. Another really fun part of camp is our open recreation time, a time for everyone to do activities together. There are spaces that OrKyla staffs and spaces the school manages and makes sure is being monitored. We're running our Marine Salmon Center, which has touch tank and a bunch of interactive science activities, arts and crafts, archery, and then boating too. We do fun yakking, but we also have other activities and games going on at camp as well, and it all is weather dependent. As you know, the islands change, so we'll keep an eye on that depending on what is going on each day for their open rec hour of free time. There's also evening programs as well that the school and OrKyla puts on together, and those also kind of change depending on the weather and depending on what the group needs, but they're really fun, all group activities, get the kids bonding, sharing this fun experience together. We do it after dinner as the sun is setting and then wrap up after it's set, and kids are normally so exhausted at that point and go fall asleep pretty darn quickly, but it's a really fun way to bond together, have a great celebration at the end of each day. Some helpful hints we really want to make sure you guys are paying attention to is following that what to bring list. We have lots of things here at camp, as well as like jackets, rain jackets, sleeping bags, and pillows. But it's always best if you guys are bringing them along so that way the kids feel the most comfortable. But rest assured, we do have lots of extras here in case a kiddo loses a jacket. We've got extras. Label everything. It's really easy. Just put a piece of tape or something to label it. Maybe you wouldn't be surprised by the amount of lost and found we have after each time. So just make sure you're labeling stuff, easier to get back to everyone after the fact. Like was said earlier, please don't send electronics or valuables. Camp has a bad track record of breaking phones or electronics. It's like it's a curse. Almost the second it gets to camp, it gets dropped in a puddle and then something's broken. So just leave those at home. Let us know if there's any severe food allergies or any dietary needs before coming to camp. That's where our kitchen can get fully prepped and not have to scramble. We're a little limited on resources on the island, which makes sense. So sometimes getting certain dietary needs, we want a heads up so that way we can make sure we're all set for everyone to be here. And then also making sure you're doing that paperwork and liability forms. That's really crucial. Make sure everyone is set to go before they get here, so we don't have to scramble to try to get things set. And then thank your teachers. It's a huge endeavor getting this many kids to get up to camp, then to get picked up. It's a lot of work that goes into planning this. So really appreciative for all the Eckstein teachers and faculty for making this happen. It's a big undertaking. Last things for y'all is we're really excited to see you. We're having an amazing fall so far. We're in week 2 of our programs. Fall is a really short season for us, so all of our staff are just really, really excited coming off of our amazing summer and spring season. Just to keep the ball rolling and have a bunch of energy that we haven't seen in a fall here in a while. So we're really, really excited to see you all. Here is my email if anyone really wants to reach out individually and has very specific questions. But otherwise, it was great talking to you all. I think we're transitioning to questions here soon, but I'm going to stop sharing my screen so we can see each other all again.
Thank you, Dylan.
Yeah.
We'll have Berna pull back up our school contacts as well. Perfect. Right now. As we go about this, our Eckstein students will take a similar picture right there on the steps, right in front of the mess hall, And we'll probably use that on our little graduation cards that we send out at the end of the year for our 8th grade promotion parade. So we will capture one of those photos for all of you here in a couple weeks. And we're really excited about it. And hopefully it's going to be very smooth. Last year we got caught up in some smoke, as many of you may have heard, where we sent our 8th graders up in the fall and the smoke got really bad. We brought them back, and then we were able to push back out to camp in March again last year. So everything's going to go great this year, and we're very excited. So Ms. Cristobal has put in the chat contacts about just chaperone clearance, which we're really good on, thanks to Ms. Dietering. We've got Ms. Dietering's contact there for chaperones, and then we put Nurse Amelia's contact in the chat. And again, I just want to stress, if your student has medications, we have to get those in here within the next week. I think in a day, isn't it a week from tomorrow, Ms. Cristobal, that we have to have that in. And every medication that goes with us, and I know this may sound silly, but even Tylenol or Advil that we are dispensing, we have to have a doctor's medical authorization to be able to give that medication. And I know from personal experience, it can take a while to get doctors to respond on these forms right now. So please start in on that so that we're not scrambling. It takes Nurse Amelia a week or so to put all this together and create an Excel spreadsheet with time of day of the dosing, and it's complicated for us. So please help us there. And then we also have Ms. Cristobal's information there for specific questions. So we've been answering in the chat as we go here today. If you have student-specific questions or needs or concerns for your specific student, we'd like you to email one of us so that we can answer those personally for you and your family. But if there are questions that you have that are for the greater good of our community here tonight, we'd love to take them, either school-specific or OrKyla-specific. And let's see if there's anything else that's out there. Thanks for putting things in the chat. Feel free to ask the question in the chat as well. If you don't want to get on with all 125 people, we understand. So we'll monitor the chat, or feel free to raise your hand and we'll have you ask your question.
I have a question about weather. You said, Dylan, about things change based on weather, where if we have like large rainstorms come in. I know last year smoke was a problem. I guess what is the response or plans with weather, I guess?
Yeah, totally. So one thing we instill here at OrKyla is we go rain or shine. We just adjust things accordingly. So if it's a drizzle rain going, we've got extra jackets, ponchos. We're going to keep doing our classes in the rain. We do have covered spaces. We'll kind of like maybe start our classes underneath covered, go out there into the forest, then come back to the cover to talk through it. And we also have, if it gets cold and rainy, we send hot chocolate around to all the stations to make sure kids are staying warm and feeling comfortable out there. If there's intense windstorms, we just move our ropes features and do things out into more open field, so there's no risks of anything falling, and we just stay away from those dense tree areas if it's really heavy wind. Lightning and thunder, which is incredibly rare, but happened earlier this fall here. We move things inside and just keep modifying from there. Being a camp, we're a little limited on our indoor space, but we have made it work, and we'll make it work again if we need to. And then smoke is another one where luckily right now it's looking good as far as like forecasts with smoke go, but we've got multiple plans in place of what to do and where we move into spaces in case of intense smoke going. But most of the time, if it's raining, we're still out there doing it. We just layer up and bring some tea and hot chocolate out to everyone.
A question was asked in the chat about finding out cabins. Every year, the students find out the morning of when they arrive, and they walk into the cafeteria. And again, we guarantee that they will be with one of the 3 people that they selected this week, with who they were interested in being in cabins with. They will be with students that they don't know particularly well, and that's some of the joy and the experience and the connection that we're trying to build, and that we do build when we're at OrKyla. So they will find out that morning, and it'll be very exciting. And they don't go throughout the 3 days of camp just in that cabin. They will be in different elective groups and mixing it up with different students. We're going to have this year 2 different open camp hours where they can find their friends and decide where they want to adventure together. There's going to be a campfire. We're doing the Amazing Race one night. We just decided this week. So there's lots of opportunity to mingle. And as Dylan said really nicely, they're in those cabins to get rest. And they sleep really well after the days that they're having and all the energy. As far as lunches, we will ask the students to keep their lunches with them on the bus, onto the charter bus, and then walk it on. Disposable lunches, please, like in a lunch bag, something that they can throw away on the ferry. Cabins have, I'm just looking at the list of questions here in the chat. And Dylan, you can jump in here too. The occupancy varies a bit, but I would say on average, like 10 per cabin. Our district ratios are 10 students to 1 chaperone when we push out on field trips like this. Yeah, Dylan, you want to comment anything else?
No, that's yeah. They each one they vary a little bit, but at least 12 bunks they have in it. Yeah.
We talked to Haley, who's one of the or who's the camp director this week, and we talked about having a spaghetti night and maybe some hamburgers and chicken strips. So this is a pretty well-oiled machine. Eckstein's been going now for a lot of years, and the camp staff is just exceptional and knows our group and how we traditionally do things. So we appreciate that. Other questions? Feel free to raise a hand if you want, or put anything else out in the chat. And again, any personal questions to your student, we want to make sure we answer those too. Feel free to reach out over email with those. Okay, we're giving wait time like we do in our classrooms, but I'm not seeing a whole lot out there. So I would just say this, we're going to hang on here for a few minutes. And I know that there's many things to do tonight, so feel free to hop off the call. We so appreciate you being here. We're so excited for camp for these 8th graders. It's going to be great. We're going to go back through all of these details with our students in an assembly as well here in a couple weeks. We're going to do it the week prior to camp, so all the expectations and everything is quite fresh for them. And again, I just wanted to give another shout out to our chaperones that make this possible, and all the school staff that's going in our OrKyla staff, and those parents in the next few weeks that are going to be helping get all of our students situated in electives and whatnot. So, okay, we will hang on. I'm seeing people jump off the meeting. That is great. We'll be here a few more minutes if you want to ask anything on the way out. Thank you for all the kind words in the chat. The best. Love our community. Thank you.
Miss Rose, there's a question about pictures taken at camp and shared with families after.
Yeah, so we can certainly do that. What we often do as administrators is we walk around and we take pictures and then we send them to Ms. Dietering. So you will get one, an email the first day that's like, Eckstein's at camp, here's some pictures as we're getting going. We have had teachers in the past take a bunch of pictures and put them onto a share drive. We just have to be super careful with photo permissions. And we're capturing all those in our back to school forms right now. So we just need to make sure that we're not sharing photos of other students whose parents do not want them shared. So it's a little complicated, but we will share outward what we can, certainly at camp, and then I'll figure out the rest with some sort of a photo share.
This is Julia.
Yes.
Wait, this is Julia. Just to add that there is at least a double spread in the yearbook with the photos. They do that.
And this is our wonderful Julia Dietering that does all of our organization. Thank you for being here tonight too. Yep. And then we'll have some in there as well. And if your student was absent this week for elective choices or who they want to be in cabins with, no worries. We have attendance from our science teachers. And when Ms. Cristobal and Ms. Ziada start going through the cabins and making this, it will be very apparent who we need to talk to and figure out where they plug in as well. Okay, anything else before we sign off? Okay, I think we've reached the end. Thank you, Dylan, for being here. Thank you to everyone. We'll stop recording and see all of your students at school tomorrow. Happy almost Friday, everyone. Thanks for